the last 28 miles were like a race. She was close, she was strong, and I had been told since then that she had won Moab 240 and she podiumed at the Cocodona 250. So I knew she had a lot of experience, and she was clipping along, and I was like, "Oh no, what's happening?" So I was running scared.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gotta Run Racing.
Welcome. What is happening in the world of Gotta Run Racing?
The final Chase the Coyote is just around the corner. How you feeling about that?
It will be a sad day
Bittersweet.
when the final runner comes through, but hey, we will be there waiting. Come, no matter how long it takes.
Okay, well, there is a limit.
Yeah, well, we'll be there. And who's on the podcast today?
Today we have Kathleen Egan from Washington State. She recently raced the Bigfoot 200, placing first female overall and just inside the top 10. Bigfoot, if you don't know, has over 14,000 meters of gain. It's 336 kilometers long, so just over 200 miles. And it starts in Mount St. Helens and finishes in Randall, Washington. It's a point-to-point through the Cascade Mountains.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a biggie. It's also part of the Triple Crown of 200s, which consists of 3 200-mile races over the course of 4 months, which I cannot imagine anyone's completing that, but obviously they have. That's Tahoe, Bigfoot, and Moab.
What do you think Bigfoot would actually do in this race? Bigfoot himself.
Well, I'm sure his stride length is probably about 10 times what ours is, so I think he would crush.
I'm thinking of Bigfoot during the $6 Million Man episodes. Which,
oh, you're dating yourself.
I know I am, but that was the best of that show, anyways, when he took on Bigfoot. Anyway,
well, let's get to Kathleen.
Coming up.
Welcome to the podcast, Kathleen Egan, and congratulations on your recent win at Bigfoot 200.
Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you. I'm happy to be here and talk about it.
Awesome. Well, before we get into Bigfoot, we always like to start at the very beginning. So how and when did you start running?
I actually started running while I was in graduate school. It was a way to get out and escape from the long days of sitting in the classroom and studying. It was cheap, it was easy, it was efficient and effective. So that's kind of where the journey began.
When was your first ultra and how did that go?
My first ultra was a few years after that. So in graduate school, I actually signed up for my first marathon. And that was really a fun experience. I went to graduate school in Atlanta, Georgia. So the marathon that was most convenient and the right timing in between exams was in North Carolina. And so my friend and I took a road trip out there and we loved that whole rural scene, white picket fences, like the local dentist and the neighborhood, the mom next door. It was one of those experiences that was really fun, warm, nice, welcoming community, and it stuck with me. So then fast forward, after I graduated from graduate school, I moved back to Seattle, Washington, where I currently live. And I was looking into endurance sports, and I ended up becoming really interested in long distance triathlon, actually, and Ironman. And so I was training for the marathon part of the Ironman. And this is back in 2003, before social media and all the easier ways to get into, online meetups and training groups. We had a local running store called the Seattle Running Company. I joined their long group runs, which were every Sunday. And that was all part of my marathon training for triathlon. Well, I ended up falling in love with the people there. And I was like around all these ultra runners, even though I was the triathlete. And they were just, oh, I ran 20 miles yesterday. I'm doing 26 tomorrow. And they had like a little bagel and cream cheese in their hands, little rosy cheeks, and super friendly, modest, humble. It's like, who does that? So that kind of planted the seed. really. And I started just hanging out with these people, all characters, all fascinating, just wonderful, hardcore and humble. And so then I signed up for my first ultra. It was, I think, the Mount Hood 50/50. And it was in Oregon. And again, towed the line, didn't know what I was doing really, except for Scott gave me, like, everything I knew was from Scott McCoubrey, right? But I had not done any of these, and I didn't really have any close friends who had done any of these. And I had a great experience. It was beautiful. I loved the nature part of it. And again, the community, the people. So I kind of, after that, they were saying, you really should keep doing these. You know, I had a couple of people afterwards, and I just, it kind of spiraled from there. And I think that was in 2006, maybe, was my first ultra.
Did you finish your Ironman?
I did. And I went on to do another one. And then after that, I kind of put that away and you know, stuck with ultras.
Well, we'd like to talk about a few of the other races you've done, because your history on Ultra Sign Up is pretty extensive, but we did notice a race that came up that someone else that we chatted with has done several times, and that's Vaughn Fan. I'm sure you must know each other through the ultra scene because you're both living in the same area, but what did you like about Pigtails race specifically?
Oh, cute. Yes, I do know Vaughn. Yes, I've known Vaughn for probably about 15 years. So she was one of the ones early on that I met, her and Jess Mullen, maybe later than the 2003 mark, but still early in my ultra running years. They were already out there just crushing it. But Vaughn, I think I loved the Pigtails because it was her race and she put it on and we all loved her, and you know, it's local, and it was a great trainer, and it was super fun, and one of those grassroots, and really it was just a fun one, local, low key, and I enjoyed it. It was a good time of year.
What do you look for? What elements do you look for when you're picking your A races?
Nowadays, I love mountainous, and I like a lot of vertical and more of a kind of a cross country or maybe high altitude. That kind of thing is appealing, given, you know, that the background I have. You know, I've done a lot of through hiking and fast packing and ski mount, you know, some ski mountaineering and things like that. I really love the rugged mountains. But, you know, I have mixed it up, and I enjoy a variety, but I would say I'm most attracted to rugged. And I think that's where Bigfoot, you know, really came to light, is that particular trail system.
Another race that piqued our interest that you've done is Tiger Claw. Now that's directed by Ethan and Kimberly Newberry, also known as Ginger Runner. I'm curious about the whole logistics of this race. What exactly is this race?
Oh, that was one of my favorites. So that one is one of our local ones, and it's famous for the climb, the amount of vertical. But the logistics are fascinating too. So I ran it the inaugural year, and there are a few different loops or routes you do, and you can choose which order you want to do them in. And that makes it really fun because you don't know where people are and what their choices, and what it's kind of strategic. And I had never run anything done that way, and it was really fun. I absolutely loved that one, and I do hope to do that one again.
Do they keep it do the runners keep it secret as to which loop they're going to do first from each other? I think it's a mix. I think some people will, you know, share that with each other. Other people probably keep it kind of secretive and keep their strategy. I've had people share with me and other people not. So I think it's just individual. But that's a good one. I highly recommend that one.
Well, I would like to try it one day, just to also meet him and her, but also take on this challenge.
All right. Well,
I highly recommend it. And they do an excellent job with organizing.
Let's get into Bigfoot. Was this your first 200 miler?
It was, actually.
And I assume that you were drawn to it because of the location. Obviously, it's in your backyard, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. I was familiar with some of those trails. I'd run around Mount St. Helens several times in the past, and then it starts down in that area.
I'm curious because you're a similar age to us. I think you've crossed the threshold of being 50, I believe.
Let's see, today's the 29th, about 2 weeks. So very close. I'll be 50. But this was an early birthday gift to myself. Yes.
Okay. Well, almost welcome to the 50s. And like I said before, you do have an extensive racing history. So I'm curious to know, because for me, age is playing a factor now with how I choose my races and how I go about my training. Do you think you could have tackled a 200 miler in your 30s, let's say?
Personally, probably not, because I don't think I had the maturity back then. And I've had a lot of life experiences, I think, that helped me get ready for this one, like the backpacking, the through hiking, patience, self-care, and just multi-day, nutrition, feet, all those things that are really important for sustaining those long, everyday outputs. In my 30s, I think I was more impatient and, quicker out of the gate and, would just go for it, and I don't think that for me, that wouldn't have been a good approach for a 200 miler because I wouldn't have lasted. So I love being this age and doing these kinds of challenges.
How did you feel at the start line, knowing that this is going to be the hardest race or run of your life?
Well, the start line, I had some mixed emotions because there was a little other things at play in my life at the time. So, I had that with me. And then I had the anticipation of, I'm actually glad to be here and be healthy and be able to start this race. And I know it's going to be a long journey and there's a lot of unknowns, but I'm prepared. I'm well prepared. And I'm just going to give it a go and get going. I think the anticipation sometimes is really hard when I had all that going on. And then just the thoughts of, oh no, during your taper, oh, my foot hurts or I'm tired or, I feel emotional or all those things. So I was actually really glad to get going, even though of course I had those nervous butterflies and the fears of the uncertainties. Let's
break down the race into sections. How was the first 24 hours?
So the first 24 hours are really interesting. So at the start of Bigfoot, it's a single track trail. And I am not one of these ones that was going to be looking to see where the women were placed and where I'm placed. I was in the middle of the pack and was like, we've got lots and lots of time to be out here. I'm just going to get into a nice, easy rhythm and go from there. So I was moving along in those first several miles, and, ran with a woman actually, through the blast zone, having a great time, feeling very comfortable, the pace I was going. And then, really at mile 50 is where apparently, and I did not know this, apparently I caught the first woman. And again, I had no idea where people were because there was also a 40 miler that started an hour before us. And I came up on, I know a friend who did the 40 miler and I caught her. So then I was seeing other people out there and I didn't know, the bibs kind of looked similar to me, the colors. It's like, I don't know if they're in the 40 miler or the 200 miler, but I'm just moving along. So anyway, at around mile 50 is when I apparently caught the woman in first place, and she had told me she was not feeling well and she was going to withdraw. She was going to DNF at the next aid station. And so then at that point I knew I was in the front. And, a few hours later, I caught up with my first pacer, which was at mile 64, 65 at Norway Pass. And that's where my pacers jumped in. And they told me, you went from fifth woman, 19th overall, I think it was, to first woman, 7th overall. And I swear, I feel like my face went white. I started to panic. I was like, oh no, I that's not my style. I don't want to be in the front. Not so early. There's still 150 miles of this race, 160 miles. This is way too soon. But they took a reading on my face, and because originally they were like, "You're doing great," and I was like, "Oh no!" And they said, "Just stay within your abilities and just keep going. If you're feeling all right, just relax." So I just forgot about all that and just kept on going. And then I had my pacer with me at that point. And then later, I think it was maybe 60 miles later, when I realized that the first woman had not dropped, because I saw her as I was leaving an aid station, and she looked like she was rallying and pretty strong. And that's when it started to feel like this might be a race between her and I through the rest of us. I'm not sure if were you tracking this when it was happening?
Not you personally.
She was closing in pretty strong. Yeah. The first 24 hours, I was pretty much from 50 mile on in the front. And I stayed that way for the most part. And then I started realizing that number 2 was coming in closer. And so it was just a matter of figuring out who's sleeping when, the strategy. People are sleeping at different times. They're in their cars, they're in tents, and figuring out who was placed where. And that's when I started feeling like maybe I need to pay attention and start making this, making a move, or at least staying in the front.
It seems so strange seeing this. So the first 24 hours, let's go to the next 24 hours and see how you're feeling.
Yeah. So, pretty much the race was continuing. That, I mean, really, after mile 50, I was in the front and kind of ran scared until the finish. But the further along we got, number 2 was getting stronger. Yeah. She was getting stronger and stronger. And I started getting feedback from my crew that she was gaining on me. And, in the meantime, I had, some big blisters on my feet. So I would stop, and, they had incredible medics there that, would specialize in foot care. And I would take the 20 minutes to have my feet taped and dealt with. I think that was a good call, even though it was a little extra time consuming. And I did that twice. And every time I would do that or take a snooze, she would be pulling in pretty quickly afterwards. And so really, I just, throughout the time, we just kept an eye, and we just, whenever we could get updates, which really wasn't often, a lot of this is very remote, and there's no way of tracking. My crew just was with me and supporting me. And then if they saw her coming in when they were leaving after I left, the next time they would see me, they'd report that to me. But being in the front is harder than being number 2, where you can ask when did she come in? When did she leave? That kind of thing. So again, running scared and just trying to do the best I could, but also staying within my own abilities. That was really important, because I needed to be able to maintain what I was doing, because there was still, a few days left in that race, but, so I just kept on going and use the information and try to, do the right sleep strategy, which was a really good reset and reboot for me. And then, I guess later is when it got to where I just really had to take a risk with my pace towards the last chunk of the race, the last 28 hours, or 28 hours, 28 miles, 28.
Before we get to the finish line, during the 4 or 5 days, what did you see out there as far as, wow, that is spectacular? A sunrise over a mountain, or maybe some animal that crossed in front of you, things like that?
I saw beautiful mountains and forests, lush forests, all kinds of nature. I don't remember seeing much large animal wildlife, but I did see some what reportedly were pretty rare tiny little frogs that were super cute hopping along at night, and some bigger frogs. I love frogs. So that was fun. But I don't really remember seeing any other large animal wildlife. Not for real. I did have some hallucinations, but that was more of, backpacker person, slumped over a tree, which my husband and I simultaneously hallucinated that same thing. Not an animal, but a human we thought we saw, who was not there. It was a tree stump. That third night, I thought I saw a couple of shooting stars, which was pretty magical. I enjoyed that. And that's when the tiny leaping frogs, which I think were real. But there was definitely a few things that I was later told were not real. And at the same time, something new to me was this in and out of reality episodes I was having. And that was night 3, where I would slip in and out of reality. When I would come back in, I would look around at my pacer and I would say, what am I doing? Where am I? I was, I'm in a race. I'm running Bigfoot. That's right. Okay. And then all of a sudden, where am I again? What am I doing? Oh, this is Bigfoot, So that was new. I'd never experienced that before. And, this was all while we were kind of like hiking alongside a steep ledge. I was like, just keep an eye on me, please, Monica. That was my pacer. I was like, this is what's going on for me. So that was new. I'd never experienced that before, but I'd heard that can be a thing, and it makes sense. It'd been night 3 and I had slept, not more than 90 minutes.
Let's chat about your last 10 hours now. That in this day, you're done. How did that feel going in your last 10 hours?
That was really helpful when I was figuring out, I think I can finish that next day. That helped. That's a motivator. It also helped me relax on, strategy and caffeine and things like that ultimately I really wanted, that I was staying away from earlier on because of sleep. And so really it was at, the second to last aid station where I was getting my foot dealt with. There was a couple of people there that was saying, "Oh, she's really closing in. You're probably going to see her on the out and back." And I thought, "Oh well, that's just how it is." And so I still took a snooze there. That was my last 45-minute nap, and had my feet dealt with. And I'm glad I did that because what it did was it just made my feet to where I could just knock it out. They went numb right away, and that was great with the tape on them. And then I was able to pound some caffeine. And then I was with my pacer, Chrissy Mell, who has a lot of race history. And she was an incredible pacer and helped me move forward. And we just took it from there and just picked up the pace. And as we were getting feedback that she was really coming in from 5 miles to 2.5 to 1.5, then we were like, uh-oh. So, then we really just we kicked in. I found a gear that I didn't know that I had and just moved along, and eventually, gained some more miles back. I think I finished like maybe 5 miles ahead of her, but it got pretty close. Like she was 1.5 miles back. And that last aid station, I had planned on switching into a nice wider pair of Hoka shoes. And I just had to run right through that. I was like, I am being closed in on. We just got to go. We got to hustle. So I didn't even stop at that aid station. I picked up my last pacer and we just took off. And I ran as hard as I could with everything I had.
It's amazing how in a race of that distance, you can have someone that close to you, because we've run 50K races where you don't see anyone the whole time, yet they're there. But to be in a 200 miler and someone's within 1.5 miles of you at the end is pretty incredible.
That's a sprint.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the last 28 miles were like a race. Like she was close. She was strong. And, I had been told since then that she had won Moab 240 and she podiumed at the Cocodona 250. So I knew she had a lot of experience and she was clipping along and I was like, oh no, what's happening? So, I was running scared in the truest sense. I really had to dig deep to get that win. She was not going to let me have it and I wasn't going to let her have it. And that was what made it a really fun, competitive, in a good way, all the right ways. I think we probably both had better races because of that in the end. In the moment, it hurts. It's scary. But in the end, looking back, it's like, oh, that was kind of cool.
Well, congratulations again. Tell us, how do you wind down after a race of this magnitude?
You know, after that, I just, I'm gonna say I'm surprised at how decent I felt after this one. I was really shocked. And I will say, after Western States, I felt much worse. Like I had pitting edema in my feet, my every muscle in my body was like not able, like it was bad after Western States. And I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it's because I felt really well trained for this one. I mean, newbie, yes. So, I definitely look back and could have done things more efficiently, and, I would refine things now. But I was well trained. My husband and I had a lot of fun in the mountains getting ready for this thing.
What about a stage race? Have you done one, or have you thought about doing one? Because I just signed up for my first. It's not very long, but I'm excited to try it.
Yes. I actually have not tried a stage race, and I've been very intrigued by them. And Trans Rockies used to be high on my radar. And then in Morocco, the MDS. Which one did you sign up for?
Actually signed up for Run the Rocks in Moab next March.
Oh, see, that sounds nice too. I would love to try a stage race. That's one thing I haven't tried, and I'm really interested in that. I think I would enjoy that. And I've heard, again, community, camaraderie. It's just a really fun way to experience the trails in a race environment.
Well, this has been awesome, Kathleen. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed hearing about your experiences of all the races that you've done, and I'm sure we could chat for a couple more hours, but maybe we'll do that over a beer at a race in your neck of the woods.
Oh, I would love that. Please do reach out anytime. I would love to take you out in our mountains and show you around. You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. It was fun chatting with you.
All right. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for taking time out to chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Well, do look me up if you're ever in the area. I'm right in North Seattle. So I would love to have a beer and a run. So anytime.
Well, we might take you up on that because he needs vert for UTMB.
I need lots of vert.
Awesome. Yes, and we've got lots of vert here. That could be, you can get in a lot of vert here.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, that was Kathleen Egan.
So impressive.
I know.
So impressive. I want to know, but I don't want to know how I could function on 45 minutes of sleep every 24 hours.
We didn't say that, but it took her over 75 hours to complete Bigfoot 200. And to just keep going and figure it out and to be chased.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
I know, it's like,
oof.
Yeah, you're enjoying the adventure, but then you're also racing. So you gotta know that fine line.
But she handled that pressure well, obviously.
Yeah, and that being her first 200.
Right. Exactly.
Can't wait to hear or see what she does next.
Yeah.
If she's ever going to do Cocodona, 250, hey, why not up at another 50?
Or Moab or stage racing. I think she'd do well at stage racing
I
because,
know.
like I said, having that sleep and putting your feet up and
just being somewhat fresh the next day.
Exactly.
I can't wait to see what you do.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
Until next time.
Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Bye.